It's just very interesting. All right, we have a new guest. So Mark, we have Mark coming up. So Mark, tell us, why do you believe in your God? How you doing, Mark?
Doing good. How you doing?
Good. Yeah. So why do you believe in your God?
Many reasons, right? It could be
Okay. Well, how about for
one
the
is
purpose
because
of the let's go for the purpose of this talk. Let's go for your best reason. Like, and say your best reason is if somebody were to disprove that reason and you verified that that disproof is true, that it would cause you to seriously reconsider your belief in your God. So let's start with that one.
okay,
Like your
I would
best
say, let's
reason.
say, as opposed to atheism, for example, right? I would have to give up free will, right? If I believe like we arose through some natural evolutionary mechanism, I'd have to give up on free will. I would have to give up on reality being true, and I'd
Wait,
have
hold
to
on.
give up
So
on moral. Yeah.
wait. So okay, so your best, I because I asked for one reason. So you gave me free
Mhm.
will, giving up reality,
More.
and something else. So I'm
Mhm.
asking for one your best reason,
Okay, let's go with the
one reason,
morality reason.
morality
Morality.
reason. So you're saying
Yeah.
morality. Okay, and which God do you
No,
believe
no,
in?
no. I retract that. Let's go with the free will argument. Sorry.
Free you
No,
believe
no,
in?
no. I retract that. Let's go with the free will argument. Sorry.
Free
That's the
will.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
hmm
okay. And then which God do you believe in?
The Abrahamic God, Jesus, the
Abraham,
Christian God. Yeah.
Christian God? Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, okay. So you're saying if someone were to demonstrate to you that there is no free will and you verified
Uh-huh.
that what they demonstrated to you is true, that would
Uh-huh.
seriously cause you to reconsider whether or not a God exists.
It would, no, it would destroy both because atheism doesn't have it. If if my God doesn't have it, then I'd have to consider something else other than atheism or
Okay.
my religion. Yeah.
Okay. What is your definition? Okay. And then how confident are you that the Christian God exists?
Um, how confident? I'd say to even say that to make that statement, I'd have to be 100% confident. Yeah,
You would have to be 100% to even
I'd
make that
have to be.
statement?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And okay, that's an interesting way to put it. But we'll stick on the free will thing for now. So, what is your
uh
definition of free will?
Being the first mover of your actions.
Being the first mover of your actions. I'm not sure what
Yeah,
that means. What does that mean?
like they use the domino example, right? I'm the first one to push the set of dominoes that made me raise my hand. It wasn't like a photon hit my neuron and then my neuron tripped another neuron, went down my arm and made me raise my arm. It was I am, whoever I am, my soul, whatever that thing is, was the first one that said, "Hey, Mark, raise your hand," and I raised it. There wasn't no outside
Okay.
influence.
There's no outside influence. So there's no outside influence. So wouldn't that
No,
be
no,
the
no,
case
not.
for
Let me just clarify. Not to say that I don't have outside influences, right? Um, so I could have an influence, like a deer comes in front of me, right? And when I'm driving, a deer jumps in front of me, and I swerve left. Now, if the evolutionary process is to be believed, right? It's I see visual. I got a visual of a deer, and it just tripped a bunch of wires in my head, made me swerve left. Where in my worldview, I see a deer, my soul made me turn left, right? So I do get information from the outside, but instead of it just being an automatic thing, instead of reacting, I am acting. I'm actually the one doing the things.
okay, so your soul makes you decide things?
My soul decides things. I am my
Your
soul.
soul you are your soul. And what is exactly a
Yeah.
soul?
I don't have to describe. I don't have to describe it. Whatever it is, it's an entity that you know is not contingent on other things to make choices.
Entity
That's one of its attributes.
not contingent on other things, and it makes its own
Yeah.
choices. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm all right. I'm kind of lost here because if it's an entity that's not contingent on other things, so it doesn't depend on other things.
to make
Okay.
choices.
To make choices. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying your soul makes choices, but your entity. Okay. So what would it look like
Is
of
it,
an entity that's dependent on something else to make a choice? What does that look like? Because
okay, let
I'm
me
not
give you an
following.
example.
Yeah, because I'm not following this at
Yeah.
all. I'm kind of lost here.
Okay, would you say okay, like a car? You know, you have self-driving cars,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When a deer jumps in front of that and it swerves left, you don't say it's got, you know, willpower, right?
Okay. Well,
What happens?
on a car, on a self-driving car.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, on a self-driving car, the there's sensors in the front of the car, and then they send information to the computer system on the car, and that has to relate with distance. And there's an algorithm that is constantly running, and it determines whether or not it should keep maintain the same speed, slow down, or stop.
Yeah, right? You don't say it has
Hmm.
free will, right?
Well, because it's a machine, yes, I
I
would agree
mean,
with that. It doesn't
regardless, even
have
if it's a machine, say it's
it
a
doesn't have
meat
sentience.
machine.
Yeah,
But that doesn't sentience doesn't determine free will, does it?
sentience doesn't determine free will. Um, it I see. I'm not sure because I'm still not sure what free will means in your world. So I don't know what that means. So
Okay, no, like you
that's so
said,
I'm
let me
trying to.
use the
Yeah.
yeah. Let me go back to the car. So the car, right? Like you said, the input comes
Hmm.
in, and then the what's the opposite? The output,
Output.
right?
Yeah. Input and
Input
output.
comes in, yeah, and then it triggers. It goes into the motherboard. First, it goes into the scanner camera. Think of that as your eyes, right? Then it goes
Hmm.
into the computer. Think of that as your brain, right?
Hmm.
And then it goes to the tires and the wheel well, whatever makes a car turn, right? The mechanical parts. And it
Yeah.
does that. You're essentially the same thing, right? You operate under
Essentially.
the same premise, right? Except you supposedly have this thing called sentience, which has never been described to me fully. Um, and this
Sentience
car doesn't.
is knowing is awareness of yourself. So like if you look in the mirror, you know that's you. So like
Well, a
um,
car does that, right? It can GPS and it can know exactly where it is. A car is
no, but
self-aware of itself.
but if a car looks in a mirror, the car doesn't know that that's that car. That's what I mean. That's what I mean by awareness. Not aware because that's more awareness of surroundings. What I'm talking about is awareness of self. Does that make sense, Mark? Still there, Mark? Okay. I'm gonna have. Yep. Oh, you're back.
Sorry about
Okay,
that.
there you go.
Sorry. Yeah.
No,
Sorry,
no
I had a
problem.
call.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
No,
But
no.
so
Sentience.
sentience is awareness of self, not awareness of location. So like if a Tesla, if you drive a Tesla and put a mirror in front of a Tesla, the Tesla's not going to know. Oh, that's me.
But it can, right? I mean, it's not really a hard program to. It could have dots on it to tell it this is me. You know, you could make it look in a mirror, and theoretically, we could have
Yeah, but
a
then somebody
robot
would
that
have to
can do that,
program
right?
that. Correct. Somebody
Yeah,
would have
yeah,
to program
exactly,
that.
right?
But yeah,
Yeah, but it
but
can be
that's
self-aware.
um not in the sense of how we are self-aware. Like how did you become self-aware?
I'm sure it's by I was programmed by the evolutionary process. They were programmed by Elon Musk and his team. But yeah, I was programmed to be self-aware because it's beneficial somehow for me to
Yeah, I'm asking
survive or
how.
something.
Like, what
Yeah.
were the steps? Because you're saying, hey, it can be a Tesla can be programmed to be self-aware. I'm asking how you were
Yeah.
programmed to you yourself. How was Mark
By
programmed to be
the
self-aware?
evolutionary, I guess. I mean, it's a long process. Do you think bacteria are self-aware?
No, but I'm still asking you how
Ants,
you
because
became.
I
How did
evolved from these things. I evolved
you
from these things. So I'm trying
you
to.
you evolve from these things? But I guess I'm because you're saying that a Tesla gets a program injected into it to become self-aware, so it
Yeah.
doesn't evolve. It's programmed to do that. So
Nevertheless, it doesn't matter if the programming is, by natural selection or if it's by a person, right? I don't see what difference that would make. Either way, it's programmed by something external to us, right? We were programmed by this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a distinction scientifically, but I mean, if that's what you think, that's fine. I'm just saying
No, no. I
there
mean, what do you disagree
scientists
with
make
that?
it. Well, I'm just saying
You didn't
scientists make a
willfully.
distinction. I'm not.
I mean, you
I'm
didn't.
not. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not versed enough in that. I'm just saying scientists make
Hmm.
a distinction between programming a computer to be self-aware versus a human becoming self-aware. That's what I'm saying. It's like a realization. It's an eventual realization of who you are as a
That's
person.
that's how we
It's not a
spin it as human. We think it's unique and
well,
it's
if that's
beautiful,
what you want to, yeah,
but
and
it's
that's
not
fine.
really. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
but
that's
it's not.
fine. Okay,
And
well,
and
let's kind of go back
okay.
to this free will thing because I'm really trying to really hammer down the definition of free will, and I'm still not understanding what being the first mover of your actions means. I don't understand what that means. So
Okay, so the
help me out with
car,
that.
back to the car, right? It
Hmm.
gets the input, and it has to do. It's basically a set of dominoes. A chain effect takes place, right? The input goes in, it trips some size kind of circuit, and it causes it to do this. The car
Hmm.
can't refuse to not to do what it's programmed, right? It
Hmm.
can't say, you
Hmm.
know what, I'm gonna go left. Neither can we, is what I'm saying in essence, right? We there is no me to refuse it. You just are just a chain in this domino falling. Input comes in, and then you react to it.
Okay, so are you saying then because that sounds like there is no free will, but you're saying there? So are you? Do you or do you not
In an
believe in free will?
atheistic, no, no, I said in an atheistic worldview, that's how what I would have to believe. That I
Okay.
am just, but in my worldview, there's this thing called a soul that can say, this input comes in. It can say, nope, I'm going to go right
What is the
and
difference
do that.
between, because that sounds, what I heard you sound like you described was choice. So what is the difference between, help me understand the difference then between choice and free will?
A choice is something you can make. The example I gave you is imposed on you like the car, right? The car is not making a willful choice. It's just reacting. It's just a conduit. My Roomba has to, go in a certain pattern when it's cleaning the floor. It can't change. It can't say, you know what, I'm not going to clean today or whatever.
Okay.
I mean,
So,
yeah.
okay. So a choice is, wait, say that again. A choice is what?
You are the soul. There's nothing that causes you to do it, right?
There's
You're the
nothing that
first
causes you.
to
Okay.
to make this choice,
You're the
right?
first, but
The external
wait.
influence can inform you, but it can't force you to do it.
Okay. But isn't that the same as being the first mover of your actions?
Yeah, yeah.
But you just said that's what the definition of free will. So free will is choice?
Uh, you making the choice, not it being made by you. Like some arbitrary,
Not
like a machine can make a choice, right? But it's forced to make that choice. You
okay.
understand? Yeah,
Well, yeah, because if there's a program that says make a choice, it is being forced because
yeah.
it's doing it
It's
according to its program.
yeah.
But what I'm trying to figure out is when a human makes a choice, how is that different than uh, a human exercising free will? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, let me try what Aristotle I think said. Okay, when I push a rock with a stick, the stick pushes the rock. My hand pushes the stick. My arm pushes my hand. Maybe my brain forces my hand. It's contingent. Everything is dependent on the previous action. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay. Okay.
Until whatever the first thing that caused me to, what's the first thing that causes you to take any action? Is this just the input that comes in and causes you to do it, or is there you, whoever that is in the middle making choices about it? When an input
Well,
comes in your eye, let's say a
mhm.
beautiful woman walks in front of you, and does it send like an input of thinking she's beautiful and it makes you smile, or is there a you in the middle that says ooh smile, or is it just automatic? Is it an automatic thing that happens?
Not to me, no, because um, I mean it just depends. So I don't automatically smile at an attractive woman. That
No, no,
doesn't
no,
happen
no,
for me.
no, no. When you do smile, what caused you to smile? Was it just the attractive woman,
It
or
could
was
be
it
a
you?
it could be a number of factors. Yeah, I mean it could be that, and it doesn't have to be a beautiful woman. It could just be anybody. But it could be because we
Mhm.
made eye contact. It could be because there was some, like, say we're in a grocery store and our carts accidentally bump together. It could be a lot of reasons that I would
Yeah,
smile at
that's what I'm
somebody,
saying. Yeah, but
but
that's
that doesn't.
external to you. That's
That's
external, right?
yeah, it could be, or it could be internal to me as well, because I may be in a bad mood and I may not be having a good day, and I just don't want to smile at anybody. I mean, that happens. It could be that I'm distracted. I'm looking at my phone. It could be so. It could be a ton of reasons why I wouldn't would whether or not I would smile at somebody in public. I'm just not clear on how that differentiates the difference between free will and choice. I'm still not clear on where you're going with this. So I'm
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
I
Well,
mean,
okay.
let's
So let
move
me.
on, maybe because yeah, if you want.
Because you did say, hey, if free will is disproven to me, then it would it would cause me to either stop believing in the Abrahamic God, or I would seriously reconsider it. So that's why I'm trying to
Yeah.
ask you, like, what the definition of free will is, because if we're talking about two different things, not that I'm trying to convince you, I'm just trying to understand where you're coming
Hmm.
from. But if I can't even
Yeah.
understand what you mean by free will, I don't even know how we're going to have a conversation. You see what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Because
that's
that's
why I
like
want
the
to move
central.
on because I think we're talking past each
Okay.
other.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
then I guess then what is your best evidence for your God then?
Okay. Let's say the fine tuning argument. I'm sure you've heard
The
it if you've been here
fine
long
tuning.
enough.
Okay. And yeah, I've heard it many times, but that's an argument. That's
Yeah.
not evidence. So how is that evidence?
It's evidence that it's multi-layered, right? That the universe, space, time, and matter came into existence
Mm-hmm.
around the Big Bang,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Around the Big
And
Bang.
if
Well,
what
it says it more than that, right? It's more of,
uh,
everything has to be in the exact right spot, like the Earth is in
yeah,
it is in the perfect spot from the sun and all that
that's
stuff. Okay.
that's the Goldilocks. That's for
Yeah.
life to exist on Earth or whatever. Yeah, but yeah, that
Yeah.
that one is like the atomic strength, the gravitational force. If there were
Mm-hmm.
like even one whatever up or down one point, then even atoms wouldn't exist. Planets couldn't form.
Yeah, that's what
All
people
these
are saying is
things.
the fine tuning argument.
Yeah,
That's what people are saying.
and
So
yeah, that's the fine tuning argument. So
yeah.
it's like so whatever decided to make it, it couldn't have just been random because it's improbable for all these things to
Okay.
fall into the exact same place.
Okay. And what
And
is your evidence then that something caused that? What is your evidence of that?
because of the improbability of it, right? Like
The
when we find
improbability?
yeah, like if you went on a planet, let's say you're an astronaut and you landed on a planet and you found a Cadillac there, and you wouldn't say like the wind and rain formed it, right? You wouldn't say like erosion and the wind and all that. You'd say a mind created that. That's too complex, and it would for it to happen randomly is improbable, right?
Well, that's because I know what a Cadillac is. So I
Okay,
would,
let's say you do know what
yes.
a Cadillac is. Yeah,
Yeah, I do know what it is. So if I saw it on another planet, then yes, I would naturally assume that something put it there and that something
a
built it,
mind,
because I
and
know what it is. A mind.
that's
Yes.
yeah, that's because it's improbable because right, it could
Well, no, because
God,
it's
like a
because
volcano.
I know that it was created by somebody. That's why I would think that. But that's what I'm
I
saying
mean,
is,
let's
how do
say
you?
it's not a let's say, even if you don't know a Cadillac, let's say it's some weird spaceship that you can't even comprehend. You wouldn't
Yeah.
say like you know, and you even though you never seen a spaceship like that, there's a point where you could say this is not random, right?
Right. So I guess
Yeah.
what I'm going to ask, yeah, because and again, the reason I know is because I can compare it to things in my world that look like it's been manufactured. So then I can look at
Hmm.
that and say, well, if it's got a metal body and if it's got round shape to it, it looks like a disc. It's got wheels, it's got feet, it looks like it's got an engine. Then I can say,
Hmm.
yeah, it looks like something built this. But tell me how that correlates or translates over to, say, a rock formation. So if I saw a rock formation on another planet, how does that demonstrate fine tuning?
No, it's not a rock formation. It's because it's improbable because theoretically, um,
Well,
a
I'm talking
volcano
about
could
if I
emit.
found a rock, yeah, like a volcano, or found a rock formation on another planet, because you're saying it's all because of fine tuning. That's what I'm asking,
Yeah,
is how does that demonstrate fine tuning?
that doesn't demonstrate. That demonstrate that it's random. You could say, that looks random. With my experience, erosion can cause this, right? Volcanoes and whatever can cause mountains and rocks, but they can't cause Cadillacs because Cadillacs, take a lot of different. Okay, let's make it even something like an arrowhead, right? Sometimes rock fall and they're in different shapes, but if it's
Yeah.
like the precise shape of a arrowhead, you're like, this is not natural. Even though theoretically, right, a deer could have stepped on this and that and could have shaped something into an arrowhead. But, anthropologists will say, no, this was created by a mind. Even though they don't have evidence, they didn't see it.
Okay.
It's like 3 million years ago. We use
Okay.
probability of that this couldn't naturally occur.
Well, do you remember some years ago? Because I think I see what you're saying, but do you remember some years ago there was it was like the face of Mars. There was like this picture of what looked like a face, and it was in a
Yeah,
rock formation and it was on Mars.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
and then some people were saying, well, this demonstrates that there were aliens here, or that there used to be people here. And it
yeah.
was because it was like a faraway picture from outer space, and they were
Uh-huh.
taking pictures of this formation. And then what happened when they actually got to that, they sent a rover there and actually saw it
Hmm.
in, up
Yeah,
close, and it looked totally natural. So then doesn't
yeah.
that mean then that there are times that, because then I can think of other examples where geologists or archaeologists have found what they thought were like purposely manufactured artifacts.
Yeah,
Like it could have been an arrow or something like that, and
yeah.
and then they later found out, no, 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 it was totally naturally made. So
That's
I'm
true. Yeah, there's like a
right,
threshold, like you're saying, right? There's
right.
if it's just a simple arrowhead, you could say, well, you know what? I don't
Hmm.
know. It could have fell off of a cliff and formed
Yeah.
into this sharp.
Hmm.
But if it's got like symmetrical grooves, if there's a point where you can say this was made by a mind, and we understand it,
Hmm.
logically, right?
Yeah, we can
That's
differentiate that, but what I'm hearing though is that you're saying, well, what if you found this on another planet? What if you found a
mhm.
Cadillac? What if you found an arrowhead? I'm asking you for something that actually exists out somewhere
Well, that's what
that
I'm saying. That's
demonstrates
the
the fine tuning
space.
argument. Yeah, because I
These
mean that
parameters.
doesn't right. But I'm
Let
but
me
I'm
get
what
back
I'm
to it.
I guess what I'm asking you to do is link the creation of the universe to finding a Cadillac on another planet. That doesn't correlate to
Got
me.
it. Got it. Yeah, maybe I did jump too far ahead. Okay, so yeah, let's say these parameters that made our universe possible.
Hmm.
If they could have been anything, according to scientists, right? And, I'm not claiming to be like a astrophysicist, but this is what they
And I'm not
say
either.
that it
So
could have
yeah.
been yeah, they could have been anything possible. It didn't have to
Yeah.
be what they were.
Hmm.
But the fact that all of them were where they were, and if any of them were um, even a point off, it's like more than they said. The probability is more than all the atoms in the universe, supposedly. Like I told you, I'm not
Hmm.
a. You could check this later on your own time or whatever. Just if you grant me this,
Oh
that it's
yeah.
true. Yeah, that
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
probability
I'm
of
with you
all
on
of
that.
these,
Hmm.
yeah, if the probability of all these things being exactly here is almost impossible randomly, you know? It's like if somebody wins the
Okay.
lottery like 10 times, you're like, well, this is
Right.
not random anymore.
But
Something,
you said almost impossible randomly. So
yeah,
but not impossible.
not impossible. Just like, that's why I said there's a threshold, right? With a rock
Right.
formation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a
Uh,
point where you could say, is it one in a, 1 in 10 chance. This is to, I told you, more than the atoms in the universe chance, supposedly, if you take
Hmm.
my word for it.
No, I agree
That's what
with you.
they
I'm
say.
just
Yeah.
okay, but you said it's a one in all the atoms in the universe chance.
Uh-huh.
Yet, if so, what I'm hearing you say then is it has to be a God that did this that did now, because my question then is, why then would a God put a planet, a very, very tiny planet, comparatively speaking,
Uh-huh.
three planets away from the sun, in and then only stop at one planet? Why would he put one out of nine, and then in an entire solar system where we can't really see any other viable life? Now we have limited technology, so we don't
Uh-huh.
know if there's other life on other planets, but we're not seeing any signs of life on any other planets in a reasonable distance from us. Why would a God do that?
Uh, this is how can I put this? Like if I gave I don't know what an omnipotent God is doing, right? Maybe he finds beauty in it. Somebody says maybe maybe an unlimited God has planets to
Mm-hmm.
waste, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
like he has a limited amount of planets or resources. He can make the universe a gajillion. He can waste resources because he's all powerful, right? If my beliefs is
Mm-hmm.
true. Or maybe there's a beauty. Maybe there's something we don't know, right? I can't give you a reason. Uh,
Okay.
it'll be
Well,
like, yeah.
then if that's the case, Mark, then
Mhm.
because you're saying, hey, there's only one in, more than atoms in the universe chance of us being here. And if we're the only thing that we can observably see around for, I don't know how many billions of miles, okay,
Mhm.
or billions of kilometers, doesn't that fact alone demonstrate random chance? How does it not demonstrate
Some
random
people would
chance?
say that would demonstrate God. That's usually the argument I hear
Right,
from
but I'm
atheists,
but I'm saying
is
it.
that if
It
we're the
seems like it
only one,
also right,
yeah.
but it also demonstrates random chance too. So how do you demonstrate the difference? Like how do you show that no, it doesn't demonstrate random chance? Like what's your evidence that the fine tuning? Because it sounds to me that fine tuning points towards randomness, like
Hmm.
just from that fact alone. But you're telling me no, it points to a God. So how do you get to that? How do you
No,
get to that
according
conclusion?
to our belief, according to us, right? It's not randomness, It's that it was designed for us to come at this time and place.
According to your
And
worldview, yes.
according to my worldview, this is exactly how it was designed. And,
Right, right.
for whatever the reason why here and now, I don't know. I mean, I'm not all
Okay.
knowing. Maybe the earth, for
Well,
whatever reason, I can't
I
guess.
guess
Yeah.
my whole point is that the fine tuning argument doesn't seem to is not evidence, because it could be used either way. I could use it as evidence for randomness, because even though that these numbers are minuscule and that they're within very relatively tiny parameters, you could adjust them and still be theoretically okay. Like for example, we're not exactly 93 million miles from the sun every day of the year. Like sometimes we're
Hmm.
closer to the sun, sometimes we're further away from the sun, and it's a matter of millions of miles, right? So
Hmm.
it could be 98 million miles away, it could be 85 million miles away, and we're not burning up and we're not freezing to death, right? So we're still within that zone. We're still okay. And I'm just saying that just the fact alone that we're the only ones around, that there are not three Earths circling around this in this habitable zone, three or four Earths, which we could definitely fit three or four Earths here. So I'm just saying that doesn't seem to be evidence for God's existence. It's an argument that can go both ways. So then I ask you again. So then what's your evidence? Like that's verifiable, testable, repeatable.
No, no, no. I mean that's actually my argument, right? It's not that the fact that we are here is proof, right? In a hostile universe that we made it, the that we're in the Goldilocks zone, and that the moon helps our gravitational. Because this actually the argument I hear most of the time is that yeah, why we can't, if there's aliens, then it will prove that God is not real, right? If there was other creatures in the
Mm-hmm.
universe, because The Bible said we will inherit the earth, and what are these things doing outside in the universe if the universe was created for us, right? This is the argument I hear, that if we do ever find alien, we'll disprove God, because why did Jesus just come for humans? What about these
Right.
other, you know?
Well, okay, but can something be hostile and fine-tuned at the same time? How does that work?
Yeah, if it, the, like the flint rock, right? If I chip at it, maybe, it could seem random, right? I'm chipping at the edge of this arrowhead, but
Uh-huh.
the purpose is to make it sharp. To you, it might look all jagged. You don't know what the purpose is, right? If I give a machine pew pew to a caveman, he doesn't understand. It seems like a
Yeah.
inefficient club, right, to hit a deer with. Or like, why is the
Mm-hmm.
handle here? But for somebody who knows better, it's perfectly designed, right? Because they know, because they have more knowledge, like God would, over us, because He
Let
knows
me
the
let me ask you
purpose of
this.
this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what if you gave to cavemen? You were able to go back in time and give pew pews to cavemen, but on
Hmm.
all except one of those pew pews, we we um, we enabled the safeties on every one of them except one. So one of them
Hmm.
would get one with the safety disengaged, so that if they pulled the trigger, it would fire. Right?
Yeah.
Um, how do you think then the caveman would react?
I'm pretty sure he go shooting a bunch of mammoths or whatever. I don't know.
Right,
I
right,
guess,
right,
yeah.
right. But what would so then? How do you think the caveman would regard that one?
He would say that it's useful. Yeah.
Useful, but do you think that
Yeah.
they may think he's special, magical, maybe more powerful because he's able
Yeah.
to,
Yeah. Even in modern
drop
times, it
something or
happened.
someone from a distance? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
Even in
and I
modern
guess
times. Yeah.
yeah. So and all we did was we just like say if we handed out 1,000 pew pews and only one had the safety turned off or
Hmm.
just disabled somehow. We just broke the safety, so it didn't have a safety on it. All the other ones had the safety engaged. So
Hmm.
then they would say, "Oh, it's a club. We'll just bash things with it." But one of
Hmm.
them was able to point and make it, eject a, make it pew
Yeah.
pew.
Yeah.
Then wouldn't it would be fair to say then that everyone would be afraid of that one caveman, right? And
Yes.
I'm just trying to say that um, because if we're talking about like odds and chance, and just say, oh well, it's like a 1 in 10 trillion chance that we're here,
Hmm.
isn't that the case then that
Can I remind you that it's for something to happen once, right? You
right?
get one
It's
shot. Let's
once.
say once. This is why physicists and other people have to posit multiverses to get around this
Hmm.
fine tuning argument, because they struggle with it too, atheist ones. And the
Well,
one of
yeah.
the
I'm
things they
just
bring up.
well. We're not trying to actively disprove it. We're just saying it doesn't prove that God exists. That's all we're saying.
No, no,
And
no. They're saying they do. They say this is the one. Even Hitchens, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He
mhm,
said this is the one that gave him the most trouble, was this fine tuning argument. And
well,
the
sure.
way they get around it is to say that this is not the only universe, right? There's multiverses, so that we're the only ones where it's habitable for for life, or even planets. That outside of our universe that is strewn with all sorts of dead planets that collapse in on themselves, where
Hmm.
the gravitational force is a little higher and the lower. There's a bunch of like unimaginable amount of dead planets, and we just happen to be in the one that is that turned out right, because
Yeah. But
we've
are you
had many
saying that they
rolls of the
came up with the
dice.
multiverse because of the fine tuning argument? You were saying,
That's
or was that
yes.
just coincidental?
That's an explanation of a possibility, not that they
Right.
believe in it. They say, well,
Right.
okay, it looks fine tuned, but it could just be that we are in a
Right.
what do
It's an
they
explanation
call
of a
it? Yeah,
possibility. But I'm
possibility. That's right.
yeah. Okay. But what I'm
Yeah.
saying though is you said that that's evidence for the existence of God, and I'm not hearing the evidence because I just said that that same argument can be used to describe randomness. So That's what
No,
I'm
no,
trying
I'm
to get
saying
from you is
if
how is
our
that evidence for
universe,
existence of God?
no, this is where we part, right? Like the atheists will say, okay, we got multiverses, right? Or physicists, even
Well,
Christian
I will
ones, right?
say not all atheists believe that, but yeah, go ahead.
No, but I'm just saying, Sean Carroll, even what's his name, the one that died in a wheelchair, Stephen Hawking.
Yeah,
But it doesn't matter. This appeal to authority, so I'll leave it. I'm just saying that just to show good faith.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't want to appeal to authority too much just because some atheists say it. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, it's to show you that I'm not making this up. And like you said, me and you don't understand this stuff that much.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
admit. And so I have to take their word from. Anyways, I'm rambling. But they're saying if this was the only universe, yeah, it would be impossible for these parameters to be where they are. But it's not the only universe. There could be, unimaginable amount of universes. Then it makes it probable that. But if there's only one shot for this universe to exist, then it's practically impossible. Uh, uh, and if that's so, at the end of the day, we'll be left with me saying, yes, I believe in God, and maybe an atheist say, I believe in the multiverse. And I'll say, that's a draw. And I say, I believe in mine, and you believe in yours. And
Yeah. At the
that's
end
it.
of the day,
Yeah.
that's where it's
Yeah.
at. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that if we, so then I guess what I'm saying is if I can use the same argument you can use
Uh-huh.
to justify my position as you justify your position,
Yeah.
what I'm asking you is how that makes that true. If I can use the same exact argument you can use, how does that make your argument true?
It's a probability argument, right? I don't know if it's true. I'm just saying it's more probable. Like the arrowhead. We could
Yeah.
say, that's yeah. I'm not
Well,
saying I know for sure. I'm just saying it's probable a mind created it than it's not. And you could say the opposite.
it's more probable that and that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
Mark, is that you're
yeah.
saying it's more probable a mind created than not, and I can say, well, no, it's more probable that it was random than a mind creating it. And we're looking at
Hmm.
the exact same evidence. So what I'm
Yeah.
asking you is, how is it possible that you can say that that is evidence of God's existence? Because if we can use the same exact argument or evidence
Hmm.
as to support our side, how is that evidence for you? How is that like a plus for you? For your
Well,
worldview.
no, if because we have to use our intuition, it's intellectual price tags, right? If what I'm saying
Okay.
is true, that it's almost practically improbable for these parameters to be here, then you have to pay the intellectual price tags of positing multiverses. I know you're not, but I'm
Not
saying if
necessarily.
that's
I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I don't think so, because even though it does present issues with,
uh-huh,
when you're talking about specific numbers, everything being in a specific way,
uh-huh.
then if they do calculations for multiverses, then it does work. But I'm just saying that not all people believe in the multiverses. So, and
Okay, how
also
would you yeah. No, how would you
it
explain it if what I'm saying is true? Just pretend, I'm not saying you do, that there's only one chance for this universe to exist. And let's say there's everybody sitting in a car right now. I tell them randomly turn to a station. And
okay,
if even
but that
one,
assumes
yeah,
that there's only one singular event that's ever
yeah,
occurring. But
yeah,
we can
that's my
demonstrate,
point.
but we can demonstrate that there are like a series of events that have occurred to form the universe. So it's not just one event. Like, it's not just turning into the station. It's just there's a lot of events that come before that
Th- What
that
there's
cause the
no events
creation of the
before that.
well. That's one way. That's one opinion, because there is the theory of the eternal universe, right?
Well, then you get
I mean,
contingency.
contingency. In what way?
If anything, there's a saying that if anything that could have happened in a long enough time frame, it would have happened. Anything that could have happened in a long enough time frame will have happened. And
Okay,
eternity is the longest time frame. So if
in
anything that
eternity.
could have happened then
Okay,
everything would have already happened, and nothing
if
new can happen.
okay, so what? Okay, wait, hold up. So what you're saying then is that if time is eternal, no new
Hmm.
things could happen. How is
No.
that possible?
Okay. Let's say I live eternally, and I flip
Uh
a
huh.
coin. Do you think I could
Okay.
get if it's a completely random coin, right? Not subject
Well,
to, like, yeah.
well, a coin could only have heads and tails. So I guess you'd have to define what you mean by a coin, because
Yeah, yeah,
because a
heads and
coin only has two
tails.
sides, right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I flip it.
Okay.
Can I get heads 2 times in a row?
Yeah, you could.
Okay, can I get it 10
If you
times in a row if I flip it long
if you
enough?
flip it enough, if you flip it long enough, yes, you could.
Okay, I guess you could see what like a million times in a row, do you think?
If you
In
had
a
long
long
enough,
enough
yes, you
time
could.
frame.
If you
A
had long enough, you
billion.
could. If you
So I
if you
could
lived
then it
eternally, if you
becomes
did it eternally,
yeah.
yes, you could come up with any number. Yes,
Then
if it
you
was
see the
infinity.
problem. Yeah, you see
I
the
don't see the
problem.
problem. No.
Then how can I flip? Then I've already flipped because I've already been through eternity, right? I have already
Right.
flipped every possibility of coin flips heads that I could get in
Well,
a row.
there's only two possibilities, right? Heads or tails. But if you're
Yeah,
talking, if I want to flip it a million times in a row, if you have enough time to do it, yes, you will do it. If you lived
yeah,
eternally, yes, you will do it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
statistically
So
possible. Yes.
it would have already happened, right? Anything because everything's an eternal to the past.
Well, well, I don't know how you get to that conclusion. How did you get to that conclusion?
Everything if every possibility um, I could have had with this coin happened, how can I flip more? You understand what I'm saying? I don't know. English,
Well,
is escaping me right now.
no, you're good. I think I see
Uh-huh.
what you're saying, but are you telling me then that you couldn't, like, if you, let's just say you lived eternally, that if you
Uh-huh.
flipped and if you got heads a million times in a row, that you couldn't do it again, ever?
Yeah, because could I flip it infinity times in a row?
Yeah, you could.
Then,
If you lived eternally, you could flip it in infinity. You could just keep going
then
if
what
that's what you
more can
wanted
I
to do.
do after that?
Well, you could do it a million and one times if you wanted to. You say, okay,
There's no
I just got
infinity in
heads a
one.
million. I could just say, you could say, I could do a million. Well, see, that's the fun part of infinity, right? Is
Uh-huh.
that it's weird, but like, well, here's an example. Um, so did 1 second ago happen?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, it happened. And how many, okay, so how many between 0 and 1 seconds, how many, fractions of seconds are there between 0 and 1 seconds?
Uh, Infinite amount of seconds, if you're gonna
Infinite
say.
amount of seconds. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So if 1 second happened a second, so if 1 second happened, in the past, does that infinite number of fractions of seconds disappear
I'm not
suddenly
even
because it
talking
went
about time.
back in the
I'm talking about
past?
a series of things, right? Forget time.
Right.
A series of events. My
So
coin thing is just a series of events. Forget
okay, you're
about
talking about
like
series,
dividing the time. Yeah.
right?
Say it's
But
just a.
I don't see how that. I don't see how you couldn't, if you had infinite time. I don't see how you could
Mhm.
say get heads a million times in a row, and then once you hit a million times, you say, okay, well now I want to start over and get a million and one times in a row. I don't see how you couldn't do that, because if you have infinite time, why couldn't you do that?
But you would have done that infinitely until you got an infinite amount. If you have
Right,
infinite
but
amount of time,
I know, but it's never ending. It's infinity, right? It's
and
eternal.
then
So if you
then
have
you'll
unlimited
be at
time
the
to do
point
it,
where you're just flipping heads all the time.
how so?
Okay, first time I flipped, let's say it took me 1,000 years to get heads 10 times in a row, right?
Hmm.
Whatever years are, right?
Right,
Passage through space.
right.
And then I do it again. It took me so long, tries until I flipped it a billion times in a row,
Okay.
right? And so on and so forth. It would never end until today came. It's like I said, if there's an infinite amount of yesterdays, of how does today come?
Well, because it's not dependent upon the past. I mean, because you're saying that you can't go back to a point in time if it's eternal.
Mhm.
How is that possible? How can you not do that?
Go back in time?
Yeah. Or just think about a yesterday that was, because you're saying that if there's an infinite amount of yesterdays, how do you get to today? Well, simply because time passes. So I don't understand why you couldn't.
It's
Like if you had an
infinite to the
infinite,
past.
right?
It's like yeah, it's
But why
infinite to
couldn't
the
you?
past.
Okay, but I'm confused because because you just said that there's an infinite amount of fractions within a second ago. So why
Hmm.
couldn't there be an infinite
A
amount of
second is for
infinites, an
no.
infinite
This is a
past?
sequence of things. A sequence
Right,
amount of things happening.
right.
Not even
I
seconds because
understand.
time is relative. It's not really a thing. It's just something useful we use to, you know, to make the sense
Yeah.
around the
I
world
mean,
around us.
again,
Yeah.
infinity is weird. I'm just saying how does that relate to events? Because if you have an infinite amount of time, you have an infinite amount of events. So
Hmm.
how could you have a limitation on events?
Because it goes forever to the past. And then you have the problem of contingency. What was the first thing that caused this, right? If you have a bunch of dominoes stacked infinitely to the past, right? A series of things happening, right? Who pushed the
Hmm.
first domino to cause the next one to what caused, because we live in a world of cause and effect. Nothing happens without
Yeah.
cause in our
Well,
universe. Yeah.
who says that there has to be a cause of the dominoes? What if
A
they were
cause.
always falling? Yeah. What if they were always falling?
Always how far? Infinite amount?
Yeah. What if it was? There's no
Yeah, okay,
reason that it
but
wouldn't
that
be.
takes away cause and if then you have to break cause and effect. There's a time when cause and effect didn't exist.
Right. Right. And most things we observe in nature have a
And what
cause,
caused
right?
that?
Right.
Yeah,
But what I'm
yeah.
saying is how, because if you can go back infinitely and there can be infinite causes, that doesn't necessarily mean
Hmm.
that there has to be an uncaused cause. So I'm not seeing how that relates, how that correlates.
It does. It does because whatever
How?
caused it, the first thing to happen. Uh, well, what do you mean how? Because if one thing is contingent on the previous thing to happen, there has to be a
Right.
first thing that caused it. And if it's infinitely
Well,
going, then it would
how do you
never
know
reach
that
here.
though? How do you know that
No, no.
though?
If the dominoes are falling forever, infinitely from the past, how does it get to
Uh-huh.
my domino? Right?
Okay.
I'm
But
domino right
well, is
here,
that true in all
and they're
things? I mean,
falling.
because
How long do
that's
I wait?
dominoes, right?
Yeah, I
But
don't
is
know.
that
It's an
true in all
infinite amount
things?
of things. I'm just asking you a series of things, right? You could say it's atoms bouncing off of each other, right, in the universe.
Right. Right.
Yeah, like atoms, they're just bumping into each other randomly, unless you think
Mm-hmm.
they're purposefully. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if one causes this one to move, causes that one to move, what caused, the first one to move? That's why I use the domino to. What
What if
started
it
the
was always
motion?
moving? But what if that atom was always moving in the first place?
I know, but what caused. I know, I want a chain of atoms that caused this one to move, like the
Yeah, I
dominoes,
know.
right?
I know you do, but what reason do you have to believe that something had to cause that atom to move? Like, what if it was just moving all the time? Now, dominoes, you can say it's not quite an equivalency because with dominoes, you can say, well, because we can observe dominoes, and yeah, there is a beginning to that. But does everything have to have a beginning and
No,
an
no, no.
end?
Let's say it's an to the past stack of dominoes. That's why I used it. How do I get to mine when there's an infinite amount of dominoes behind me? How does it?
Right,
How
but
does mine fall?
well, as far as dominoes go, that's true. What I'm saying is, but when you take that to say atoms or
Hmm.
anything else, that's not necessarily
Yeah.
the case because then how would you demonstrate that the atom needed something to move?
I mean, what do you? How do you think it moves?
Well,
Do
what
they
if?
bump
But
it? Do
that's my
atoms
whole
bump
point.
into each
What if it
other?
was something that? But we have atoms that just constantly move. So how do you know that it just wasn't moving the whole time?
So they were moving the whole time and doing what? Were they bumping into each other
Just moving, yeah. And what if
and
it did
moving?
bump
Right.
into something? Mhm.
Okay.
So
And
that's
then
what I'm
when
saying
did
is
that
how do you
happen?
demonstrate that? How do you demonstrate that
How
it
do,
needed something to move it?
no, it moved me, right? It moved my hand. What I want the chain reaction, right? Let's say you have a atom moving for eternity. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One atom. Let's say it's spinning in a circle,
Yeah.
and
What if it
then
was just always doing that in eternity?
okay, when in eternity did it decide to hit the atom that made my arm raise up?
Well, this decision implies agency. So then,
I
because
don't know. When
then
did it
that's
happen in eternity?
I don't know. I mean, we don't know that. So,
So
but we're just
eternally
it could
long in the past, right?
it could have just been infinitely doing that. Yeah.
Infinitely.
So,
Then
but
how did it cause me to move if it's infinitely? It never get to me.
okay.
The first
Well,
time it hit a
I think
atom
we're
that
kind of
caused
going in
another
circles, Mark.
yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of going
Yeah.
in circles because
Okay.
I'm not seeing the, yeah, because I mean, because it seems like that there's like an assumption that has to be made, and because you're saying, well, something had to cause that to move, and what I'm asking you to do is kind of like demonstrate that, and I'm not hearing that. Well,
No, you're saying it's always moved, and I'm saying when
I
in
said,
its
what if?
movement did it?
What if
Yeah,
it's
what
always
if?
moved?
What if it's
Yeah.
always moved? And then in that what if time, when and did it hit its first atom that caused my arm to
Well, I don't know
move?
that. I mean, I'm just kind of going with your example. So what if
No.
it did,
You would have
and
to say
at
it's
some point,
infinitely long time ago because everything's infinitely long time ago.
mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, then we've never,
Well, I'm
never
still
get
not
here.
hearing why you can't have infinite past. That's what because you haven't like demonstrated to me why you can't.
I think I have, but I think we're talking past each other again.
Yeah, I think we might be. Well, because I'm asking you, well, how is that possible? And I'm not hearing the how. You're just saying,
Hey,
well,
you're
just
just
because it
saying
doesn't.
you're saying I don't know. I don't know. Like I'm saying, if something's infinitely long time ago, how did it cause me to raise my arm? If it's infinitely long time ago, when did it hit its first atom? You don't know. I say, is it
Well, yeah, I don't
infinitely in the
know.
past? You
But
say
what I'm
yes.
asking you, Mark, is how do you know that it needed something to start? What if it was always running?
No, it's running. When in its running did it hit the first atom that you agree that the rest of the universe is moving about, right? Are you
Which,
saying this
yeah,
one
I
atom?
mean, that's
Yeah. Are you saying this one atom was the engine that started the movement? Is that
no,
your
I'm not saying
claim?
that at all. I was
Okay.
using your, okay. I think we got to move on. I'm going to move on to another
Okay.
guest because I think we kind of got way off track. But hey, I
All right.
appreciate you coming up. Yep. Have a good one.
Everybody.
All right.